If you're running an online yoga business, at some point you've probably wondered, do I actually have the right legal protection in place? And maybe you've pushed that thought aside because it felt complicated or expensive or just not the most exciting thing to spend your time on. Today's episode is going to change that. I sat down with Chad Sonkin from Conscious Counsel, a law firm that works exclusively with yoga and wellness entrepreneurs, and he breaks down exactly what you need to have in place to protect your business. Whether you're teaching classes online or selling courses or running a membership or building a yoga teacher training. And the thing I love about this conversation is it's not scary or overwhelming. It's actually really practical. So let's get into it.
Thank you. I'm Chad Sonkin. Thank you all for your time. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I very, very much appreciate your time because I know we all have such busy lives and so much to do. So it's a pleasure to be here. I have um, been in the health and wellness space for the last 12 years now as an entrepreneur. And Conscious Counsel, our law firm, has existed for about 10 years now. So we've won some really amazing awards, Health and Wellness Law Firm of the Year in 2024, 2025, and hopefully, fingers crossed, 2026. Um, we work directly with yoga studios, Pilates studio owners and entrepreneurs, trainers, yoga teachers, even some gym owners over the last 9.5 years. The reason we started Conscious Counsel, you hear it in the name, Conscious Counsel, was our head attorney, Corey. He worked for big law firm corporations like tobacco. He hated it. He hated it. It was just not aligned with who he was and what he wanted to do. Corey is a former yoga instructor, Pilates instructor. I myself am a former yoga teacher as well. And we noticed a huge gap of these heart leading entrepreneurs, these incredible yogis creating a container for transformation and community and getting people into their bodies, but the law is invisible. And a lot of these owners that they don't know what they don't know. They're not lawyers, just like I'm not an accountant and I have an accountant. They're not lawyers. And what we noticed was they were vulnerable to these awful lawsuits that could have so easily been mitigated with the proper proactive legal foundation in place. So that set us on a journey of 10 years ago of starting Conscious Counsel with the intention of we want to protect these heart leading entrepreneurs. We want to make sure these heart leading entrepreneurs have the clarity and the confidence to do the deep work, do what they do best, say yes to things, take risks in their business without having to look over their shoulder like, "Oh crap, what if this one little thing goes wrong?" Right? Um, so that's how why we started Conscious Counsel, and now we've been in business close to 10 years now. We've served close to 2,000 yoga entrepreneurs. Nobody, not one in the last almost 10 years now has ever been sued using our agreements. So we're very proud of that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I
Of course.
remember, I think, I'm not sure when I worked first with Corey. I think we did a workshop, but I remember it was about GDPR when that came up. That was such a big topic. Everybody was
Mhm.
deleting their email list, basically.
Yeah,
Self
yeah.
included. And then I was like, oh my God, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yes.
You're like, after asking people, because in the beginning they didn't opt in to be on that email list, just like for a freebie.
Mhm.
And then you had to ask them again, do you actually want to stay on that email list? And obviously, like 90% or more didn't click.
Or like, no, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was a
yeah,
nightmare.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not sure when that was. Maybe like, yeah, 2020 or before that, actually.
yeah,
And
yeah, for
then the
sure.
pandemic came and all the yoga teachers moved online, started teaching online. And obviously, like there were a lot of questions about, what if someone hurts themselves at home? Or
Mhm.
what do I need to have in place about disclaimer? Then building an online business, what do I need to have in place on my website? So I'm not sure really where we should start here.
Mhm.
Um, if you have any questions, so I know Stephanie has, I think, something that she's bringing with us. Just share it in the chat, and we'll dive into that as well. But maybe just start like talking us through the essentials.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's talk through the essentials. So here's the thing about law, and I would say the biggest thing that I have learned, because I've been in all of your shoes too, especially like I come from a legal background from a family of attorneys, but I really did not understand how important and essential like what we're doing with these yoga studios was until I really saw it for myself with Corey. And what I mean is this. In law, there's something called like the duty of care, and you owe the public, your clients, the people you work with to be acting and conducting business in a way that is in the safest and most noble way you can, right? If you will. And so in law, like Corey always tells this story to me when I first joined, he told me this story. He said he had a mentor that when Corey broke off and started Conscious Counsel, the mentor told him this. He said, Corey, people are either gonna opt in to pay you now when they're first getting started and be proactive about it, or they're gonna pay you later when something happens and now they're scrambling, and that's gonna be a lot bigger of an investment or stress or time and money when we're reacting to situations that come up legally instead of being proactive. So that's the first thing I want to talk about is it's a very, very important, we like to say, to practice proactive law, to invest upfront and having a legal foundation that is proactive instead of a a big thing we see is unfortunately as people are growing and scaling, they're pouring all their time into the business. They're not thinking about the legal until something happens and they have to let a teacher go, or somebody is stealing their yoga teacher training methods, or somebody gets hurt, something falls in the studio, or somebody gets a rash from a yoga mat. Now they're looking for a lawyer. Now they're reacting to the problem. And instead of being able to mitigate it immediately, now we have to have a game plan, unravel the facts, figure out it's a lot bigger time, money, stress investment. So the first piece is proactive law. It gives you the strongest legal position possible, right? That is the idea of what we do at Conscious Counsel. Our goal is to ensure that you have a legal foundation in place that gives you the strongest legal position possible. And really, what that means is you have control over any situation that could come up, right? And now, how we do that is are you following me? Just making sense? Cool. So what we have, and this is a good exercise, is the first step to proactive law is if you're in the middle and you're drawing a diagram, if you're in the middle, you think about in business, who is everyone whom I have a commercial relationship with, right? So my partners, maybe my landlord, maybe my teachers, maybe they're W-2, maybe they're independent contractors, my clients, my in-person clients, my online clients. So you want to think of everyone whom you have a business relationship with. And then from there, the goal of the legal agreements is to openly and honestly communicate your expectations, right? What you do, what you don't do, what are your policies, what are your standards, what's procedure if something goes astray. So you want to identify who are the relationships that I have in business. From there, the next piece is you want to have industry specific agreements for everyone whom you had those commercial relationships with. Okay. So to start to start with the first one, a waiver, for example, a waiver of liability. And you could say in the chat, has anyone ever heard like, oh, waivers don't do anything or agreements don't do anything? Has anyone heard that?
I didn't.
Okay. Okay, good, good, good. The waiver of liability is essentially them giving up the right to sue you. But what we see is a lot of times people just feel good because they have something there. I was just talking to my insurance partner. He said, Chad, the biggest mistake I see yoga studio owners make is they have some type of insurance. They think they're good because they have insurance. There's something there. But when you actually look into it, it says does not protect you from bodily disharm, which is probably the number one thing you want to be insured for if somebody gets hurt, right? It's the same thing with legal agreements. Generic or DIY or AI created agreements that are in a waiver, for example, that is not so specific to what you do, what you don't do, what is the equipment that you're using, what are the weights, is it what type of yoga is it, if it's what are the do you rent mats, can they rent towels? You want to be so specific because if, for example, I had a yoga studio that added cold water immersion into their practice. They had a bunch of cold tubs set up so after class, their clientele could go and dip into the cold tub. However, within their agreement, nowhere did it say the word cold tub. Nowhere did it say, here are the risks of cold water immersion, hypothermia, lack of uh, um, uh, typhony from your hands when your hands get really cold. You could slip and fall and hit your head. So it did not say that in the agreement. So when somebody did get out of the cold tub and slipped and decided to sue them, that generic agreement was not giving them a strong legal position. That generic agreement was not giving them control over the situation. Because now an opposing attorney, a plaintiff, is going to plead their case to the court, to the judge, to the jury. Hey, yes, we signed this agreement, but nowhere in here did it say cold water immersion and what the risks are. So my client did not understand the risks, and now they're gonna pin that liability on you. So it's critical. It's critical when with your agreement and specifically waiver that is very specific to the equipment, to what you do, to how you practice, to as a group, as a one-on-one. Is that making sense?
Yes, 100%. And I don't know, like I know we have some students also from Europe. So I think we always hear about those stories, especially in the US, about
Yeah.
crazy legal claims
Hmm.
of millions of dollars. We don't really have that here, but I think we still have like waivers of liability, disclaimers. Is this like the same thing, or would you differentiate that? Actually,
Between like a waiver and a disclaimer.
yes.
Yeah, I would say it's different. I would say it's different because the waiver is very important, obviously. And so are disclaimers. Disclaimers are very, very important. I think a big thing to distinction is it really is best practice to have all these agreements separate. Like a waiver really should be separate from a service agreement or a membership agreement. A waiver needs to be separate from a disclaimer. A disclaimer is protecting you from different things. It could be like social media and what you're posting online, and tips and tricks you're saying on YouTube or on your Instagram. You don't want somebody to, like, I have an example of a woman who was teaching online. She was teaching chair yoga online. A woman didn't have an office chair. She had an office chair, not a normal chair. The wheels went out. She smacked and hit her head. And now she's suing the person that she took this tip and
Mm.
trick from online. So that disclaimer, that waiver, in this case, like those are going to work together. Hey, right here, we showed that if we post content online from social media, subject to your own risk, and also the waiver, right? That works together. It gives you that legal position to be in control of that situation
Yeah.
and mitigate it.
And the waiver is something you need to sign actively, right?
Correct.
So
The waiver,
I mean, we've done that. You go to the yoga studio and you sign the waiver before you do class. Online, it's a
correct,
different thing. I don't remember having to sign a
correct,
waiver before I watch a YouTube video.
correct, correct. And you don't. You're not going to sign a waiver before watching a YouTube video, right? You're not. However, when you have a disclaimer on your YouTube channel, when you have a disclaimer on your waiver, it just gives you as the creator, as the coach, as the leader, to have that disclaimer that is legally binding to fall back on and to protect yourself from these claims. Because in a lawsuit, they're going to try to find who is liable and pin that liability on you. And the easiest way to do it is by not having the proper legal agreements in place that give you that position, right? Especially like I come from a family of law firms. My dad would always say like sometimes the best defense, and he's a workers' compensation personal injury attorney, but he would say the best defense is a good offense. The best defense sometimes could be a really good offense. And what he meant by that is when you have these agreements in place, and what I mean by legal strength and legal position, if somebody does threaten you with a lawsuit and they signed your agreements and you had the proper proactive legal foundation, now we could say, hey, you signed this agreement right here where we showed that ABC could materialize and that was the risk. If you don't drop this claim, like we could countersue you. We'll come after we'll come after you. And almost every time it's gonna be dropped. They don't want years of that. And this isn't meant to be scary. This isn't meant to be intense. It's just meant to give you that clarity and the confidence that you should be able to go post on YouTube, go teach, go speak, go get people into their bodies without having to just look over your shoulder like, oh crap, what if one person gets hurt or something happens?
So let's get specific. Like if you run an online business, say, I mean, we have like teachers who have their studio classes, etc. But let's say you're creating an online course and you're selling that. Do you need to ask people to sign a waiver like digitally before they get access to the course, or is the terms and disclaimer, etc. enough?
For an online course, I would say they definitely need to sign a waiver. I would say for an online course, they should absolutely sign an agreement. That's an online relationship. They're going to be going through your course. Um, Not only should they sign a waiver, they should also sign a online course agreement
Hmm.
of sort because we want to protect your IP. You don't want people to. I've ran businesses where people have stolen word for word, page for page,
Yeah.
and without the proper protection in place, what you can't do anything about it, and they're still so.
But
in
from what
terms
I
of
heard, it's still really difficult to get something done because you can't really reach those people
yeah,
who
yeah,
stole it
yeah,
unless it's not normally like somebody that you know. It could be so
totally,
yeah.
totally,
But
totally.
yeah.
So that just is it's the layer of protection to ensure that you're protecting your work, your programming, and also and it's also to protect them too, right? It's to protect both parties. It really is. So I would say you absolutely need something for an online workshop, online community. Absolutely.
Okay, noted. So please remember if you have any questions here to write them in the chat so we can dive into that as well. Um, what else do you need? So that's like the most important part of course, like the waiver and the
Yeah.
description.
So I would yeah, so it's really it's depending on like how you conduct business. Is it in person? Is it online? Now, I'll say the core agreements are first industry specific waiver of liability. That's an absolute. The second would be a service or membership or participant agreement. That clearly is outlining the terms. What are the terms? What is my cancellation policy? What is my refund policy? What are what happens if a client gets does a chargeback and they're refusing to pay, right? That's what is protecting you and giving you a legal position is that service participant agreement. You need to clearly outline the terms of refunds, cancellations, chargebacks, all of that. That's a huge one. The third one would be an up-to-date, adequate privacy policy terms and conditions. Huge one. Huge one that I see every day. People have nothing on their website, or if they do, it's no third-party links. It's very inadequate. It is not protecting them. But the privacy policy terms and conditions is so big because the way we collect and store information could be in all sorts of ways based on our how are we collecting payment. When we're collecting payment, we're collecting billing addresses, credit card credentials, phone numbers, emails. Um, I've seen what happened to yoga studios is people hack a third party, something completely out of control, out of your control. They might hack into Venmo or they might hack into PayPal or like any type of third party software that we're using, and they steal credit card information or billing addresses. And that liability could fall on you if you do not have the correct privacy policy terms and conditions in place. So you need to have that as well. So the waiver, the service
Mm.
agreement, adequate privacy policy terms and conditions. And I think the last huge one of the core four would be like a media release.
Mm.
And a media release is often also overlooked. But if you are working with youth, especially if you're working with any youth, but just people in general, you need an adequate media release. And it cannot, and it should, well, I should say it can, I shouldn't say it cannot, it should not be a part of another agreement because then they could claim ambiguity. But a media release is client testimonials, client wins, your client reviews, and then of course, like taking pictures to market um, your work in your studio or your business. And with I've seen people use pictures or client testimonials or the person did not authorize that to happen and they are PO'd about it. And they can come after you if you're using pictures or their words or their language and you don't have an adequate media release. Um, and those are like the core four. But then there's, it depends because if you're a yoga studio running a retreat or you're a yoga studio doing a yoga teacher training, you have to have the proper retreat waivers or the proper yoga teacher training agreements, as well as huge, 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 huge independent contractors or employee agreements. if you're working, obviously you don't need those, but how you classify your workers and employees, and then the intentional language that you use within those contracts, like what happens if you have to let go of someone, or if they're not up to the standard that you conduct business, or they're doing something to gather your information, then go start their own studio, right? These are all these, it's very, very important to have an industry specific agreements for your employees, whether they're contractors or W-2 style employees.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I've heard so many horror stories about people who build the website and suddenly they disappear and you don't have the passwords, or people
Yep.
stealing work, and yeah, also with yoga studios or people come to the workshops and there's just like a oral agreement and
Totally.
nothing else, and then there are like disagreements about the payouts, etc. So I don't think it has to be anything complicated, but it needs to be clear and
It needs to
specific.
just be clear and intentional. And
Yes.
it also sets the terms for like a really, really good working relationship, right? Um, and even if you have a partner, like operating agreements, and like if you have a partner, if you're 50-50 or 60-40 with someone on the business, like I've seen best friends turn into enemies. And it will break your heart to see that play out. It's very emotional and very sensitive. But when you have a proper, even operating agreement, but employee agreements that clearly set like the expectations of who's taking the payment, how you're getting paid, how it's split, it lays the foundation for these relationships to blossom, to truly blossom, instead of the other way around when you're just verbally agreeing. It's like, well, you said this and I said that. You want to have it documented because it really allows the relationships to thrive, instead of the other way around when one thing goes astray, right? And it protects both of you. So that's a huge, huge piece of it. And it's if I could say, and if you take anything away from this, just first of all, like, let's speak one-on-one if anything's coming up right now, because you should have that confidence and clarity to be protected. But if you take anything away from this, the number one thing is just have an industry specific lawyer that understands your work, just review what you have, or at least equip you with what you need to have, so you could be proactive about it for the next 20-30 years as you grow your business. Don't be reactive, please be proactive. It will save you, so even if you know the if you even if you're in the middle of the street and there's nothing coming, it doesn't mean that there's not a bus turning around the corner that you just don't see yet. And it's only a matter of time when you're going to need legal. Now, the choice is up to you whether you have the proper proactive protection in place, or if we're going to need to be reactive about it.
Yes, 100%. I think everybody got that.
We got that.
We have one question which touches a little bit GDPR and all that data privacy laws. Christiana asked, when someone who's not already an email subscriber signs up to a once-off event, for example, is it against the law to automatically sign them up to your general email list as well without asking them to tick a box on the sign-up page? I'm based in the UK, but most of my work is done online for a global audience.
Got it. Got it. So based in the UK, but working with a global audience
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
the globe. Um, and you're asking basically, when someone's not already an email prescriber, can you
They
get them
sign
to
up for
sign
a
up?
once-off event. Can she just add them to her general email list if she doesn't have like this tick? Like sometimes you do a checkbox, click
Yeah.
here if you also want to be on my email list to get like more communication, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, and I wanna be careful on, like, I shouldn't give legal advice.
Yeah. So that's what I
So I
always
s
say.
Yeah, I shouldn't give legal advice, like, we should speak
Let's
one-on-one, you could talk to our head attorney for sure,
let's speak in
but
general.
speaking in generally, yes, it can be legal/compliance issue to automatically add someone to your general marketing list, um, because in this context, they registered for a one-off event. Unless unless you have a clear marketing consent. Okay? Such as, like, an unticked opt-in box that they actively choose, or the other option is a valid, like, soft opt-in. That's under, like, the UK, like,
I'm not sure if in the
UCR
UK,
rules.
if they are still using the European Union GDPR laws, if they still apply to the UK,
Right.
or if they left that behind with leaving. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I think it's also, I mean, everybody's been super annoyed by that law, but from a consumer perspective, I appreciated it, that clarity
Right.
that you have and that you have the option. So like, to
Yeah.
see it from the other side. At the
Totally.
same time, I never heard of like anything really bad happening for people when some, I don't know, it's not been like this huge flood of lawsuits didn't happen.
Right. And so I think, like, I would be careful with adding them to a general email list if they've just signed up for a one-off event. Um, but, there is something I know, especially in the UK, like, called, like, the soft opt-in. So there are some general requirements of a soft opt-in. So I would just be a little bit careful for sure when if you're doing that.
Yeah, I think it's also, it's just good practice to be open how you communicate with your students, and when you work with people who are, it may depends on your niche. I think if you work B2B, it's a little bit different than when you work with
Totally,
people who, for example, have anxiety or like maybe super burnout, stressed out or something. So you
totally.
want to be aware of that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you wanna be aware of that, and, you know, especially if you do a soft opt-in, just the cleanest setup would just be like, "Hey, you're gonna receive emails about this event, but we're gonna." It's like you could opt in here if you wanna receive more information on future events as well, because this is just the beginning of a
Mm.
beautiful, and then, like, they soft opt
Mhm.
in, okay, now they could be added, right? So, we just wanna be a little bit intentional with how we set that up.
And I think probably everybody here already knows that, but I just want to say it. So you can't send your emails from your Gmail account to everybody. You need to have an email marketing tool that gives people the chance to unsubscribe, the option to
Yeah.
unsubscribe. That's definitely a legal requirement. So that's why you need Mailchimp or MailerLite or Kit or anything like that. And they also give you options to be GDPR compliant. Like you have in
Mhm.
Kit, you have that little pop-up. It's terrible. You can't edit it at all. In my experience, it actually converted better. Like more people click that than a checkbox in the form. So I'm
Yeah,
still
I
using
believe
that.
that's
Um,
awesome. I love that.
so yeah, so you definitely need to have that in place. And I think what's also a requirement, no matter where you are, is having those stupid cookie banners on your website.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I know that's a struggle for a lot of people because it's so techy and oh my God, how do I set this up? And but there are also really great tools that you can use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even if you don't have the cookies, like, more important that you have that adequate privacy policy and terms and conditions as well then, with the list and third party links to cookies, cache, all that. Uh, I'm curious, do you do Is this is trademark? Do you got? Is that something that you discuss? Is that something you talk about, like protecting your IP and owning your trademark and your brand? Is that something that a lot of people are doing or haven't done?
Yeah, it's not something that comes up in what I teach. It's something that
Hmm.
I'm thinking about myself as well. Um, and I know that a lot of like yoga teachers, like you are not in that financial situation. A lot of my students to consider that, even it would be nice to have. Um, I know for my business that having a trademark, or for example, my name is my name, but for example, for Blissful Biz
Right.
Hive, my community, or for product names, I would need like the US, I would need like Europe, I would need like Germany, and it's a big investment. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to live with it. And if somebody trademarks that name, it's not going to be the end of the world for me. That's been
And
my decision, basically.
well, that's good. That's good. It's good that you came to that decision and you can accept the results of that, especially though it is your name. Like no one can force you to like legally change your name. Um, but I did see someone in the chat. It makes you feel much safer, and I'm glad to hear that because with trademarking is becoming a huge, huge, huge one because of like this digital world we're living in and the amount of us that are offering online courses and community building. If you are emotionally tied to your name, like if losing that name would be a emotional devastating loss, it is 100% worth to trademark immediately. But on top of that too, the bigger factor is like trademark gives you the ownership and exclusivity. That's what it's giving you. Ownership and exclusivity. And I mean exclusivity because I've had yoga teachers that were in business for 20 years and some new business came in, same exact name, trademarked it first,
Yeah.
and then sent that business, hey, you have 15 days to change all your marketing, all your branding, all your logo, all your design, all your website. So instead of like a little investment up front to trademark it, it's a $50,000 in rebranding. And that's can get really, really messy. So if you are like really emotionally tied to your name and being forced to rebrand would be a huge cost and overhaul, it is definitely worth exploring. Like, how can I trademark to own my name, my brand, and make sure I have the exclusivity? Because it is it's a first come, first serve basis. So we've really been encouraging, especially if you have like a name that is unique, really, really, really worth it to trademark. Not saying you're gonna go start sending out hundreds of cease and desist to everyone that has that name, but at least protecting yourself that no one can do it to you, right?
Yeah, that's a really good advice to think about it more.
Yeah, yeah. And we're here for you
Yeah, yeah.
if you
I
need
have
it.
another student as well. She created her own yoga method and trademarked it. And I think then when you're really building your business or that one method and it's really unique, yeah, it absolutely makes sense to trademark it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's when it absolutely makes sense for
does
sure.
it help you already when, let's say, I'm in Europe, I trademarked it in Europe and I haven't trademarked it in the US? Can then still somebody trademark it in the US? How does it work with global businesses? Because
That's a great question. I would want Corey to better answer that
mm,
question so we could speak on it. However, I would say that if you have the trademark already in Europe, like if you, for example, it, we've worked with people in the past that if you own the trademark in Europe or you own the trademark in Canada, it's a lot easier to get the trademark as long as it's no one else has it in the US.
okay.
So if we already
Uh,
can prove like I own this trademark in Europe, I own this trademark over here, then it's a lot easier and oftentimes efficient and quicker to get that trademark in the US.
okay. Okay. Another thing that is especially big in the German market right now is, I mean, we have like the industries of lawyers who make their money with sending cease and desist letters to small business owners. First, it was like some years ago, it was like when you didn't have like legal information on your website. I think most people now they know they need to do that. Even if you have just a blog, you need to have like, and it needs to have your address and everything. It's ridiculous. Like so.
Yeah.
But now the thing is using music, social media.
Mhm.
And I think also like using like what kind of images can you use? There's still so much, well, so much people don't really know that they just simply can't use everything that they find on Google. Or can we talk about that a little bit? What is like your advice there if you create content? Or is this too difficult because it's so different, like from different countries, the situation?
It's it's not that it's difficult in different countries or situations. It just depends on how and what and when and why. So probably not the answer you're looking for exactly, but that is why it's so important to have the appropriate industry specific agreements from top to bottom. It is if you're going to be using music, if you're going to be doing that in ways where, yes, like you can't take credit for the music, there's all sorts of blockers and things. You double down on that by saying, like, having the appropriate disclaimers via social media disclaimer, via in your webinar, in your waiver, in your privacy policy, terms and conditions. See, like these are things, it's not just in one document, it's kind of reiterated throughout each piece of agreement that you have with your community, with your vendors. So it protects you in that way. Right. And those are the things of like, okay, you know, you got to be careful around music. You know, you got to be careful that people could threaten you, fine you, whatever for music. You know that, but you don't know exactly how you can use it and you want to use it. You need to use it. The best way to like be able to say yes to those types of things and take that, let's not call that a risk, but take that step and take that personality and make it mute is to have the appropriate agreements backing you up, claiming and restating over and over again, like how you're using the music, why you're using the music, what you're using the music for, and how you're doing it in a way that is in the best standard with the law. Because then if somebody does threaten you, find you, inquire, we can say, hey, right here we showed how and why what we're doing with our music, how we're
Mm.
using our music. Here's the link to the third parties of it. I don't want to speak too much to it because I can't give like I can't give the legal advice around how to do it because it would vary person by person. But so my answer would be like make sure within your agreements you're tipping your hat, you're nodding your hat to that to music. You have it within your agreements on how you're using it and why you're using it.
Okay, but
It's this
those are the agreements that you have like with your students or your clients. So I would still be really careful with using trademark music, which is pretty much every music in your materials, like when you're
definitely,
promoting things. And
definitely.
on Instagram, you have the library that Instagram offers. But in the small print, it also says that it's not necessarily for professional use. So, if, for example, in Germany, it doesn't give you the right to professionally use the library music. For if you create a
Mhm.
reel and you set up a or carousel and you create background music. So you have to use music that's not protected under the protection laws for um and or no music.
Yeah,
Basically,
or
and the
yeah,
same is true when you teach classes online and you want to have a playlist running. I think it's best to just share the playlist link for Spotify or something with your student. So you're not basically broadcasting your playlist because you don't have the rights to use that on a commercial level.
exactly, Susan. Actually, exactly. Like I think you said that beautifully. Um, And another big one that's happening here in the States is ADA, like, Disability Association, and making sure it was, and I know in Europe it's the same, like, it needs to be accessible to
Mm.
people with disabilities. Now it needs to be accessible to people with disabilities online as well.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
this
a
is
big thing for your website
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
it's a big one. So you wanna make sure you have the appropriate, like, ADA disclaimer, disability disclaimer, that, like, we've had studios in the US, at least, that people are using bots to find studios or teachers that are not compliant with the Disability Act for online. So we've been combating that by giving our community ADA disclaimer on their website, which just again shows that, like, we're doing it in a way that is in the strongest eyes of our legal position, of our legal standpoint, and being very, very intentional and crystal clear about that up front.
I remember that it became a topic when I was still working in digital advertising agencies. We were building the client websites, and yeah, so suddenly it was, oh, okay, so we have to consider that as well. Shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know it's like it could feel overwhelming, and I think, that it could feel overwhelming, and just like you have an accountant, or just like you have somebody with insurance, like, it's worth it to have a trusted legal partner the same, that could take care of all of those headaches.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it comes down to it's better being protected, being proactive. Hopefully, nothing bad is going to happen to you legally, and probably you're going to be safe and not run into any problems. But it's just like having uh, insurance for your house or something, or for your
Yeah,
car. Hopefully, you never
yeah.
need it. Yeah.
Exactly, 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 and if you do, and fall back on it, and if you do and you need to fall back on it, you have something that's bulletproof, that
Yeah.
gives you that strong legal position, per that gives you the money back for your car, that makes sure, "Alright, we're not gonna this isn't gonna be a 4-year lawsuit because of time and stress and money," and just gives us that the control of the situation and mitigate it immediately.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the community here? So if you're with us in the call, speak up, please,
Yeah.
because I think I've run out of questions to ask Shit.
Yeah, no worries. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. No question is a bad question. You can ask what I had for breakfast. Just coffee so far.
Are you living at the beach in California? Are you surfing? Because
Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. I am surfing
you're not
every
alone.
day. Do I? Okay, that's a big. That means a lot. Actually, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Actually, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah,
Okay, looks like we don't have any questions.
cool.
Is
So we covered
anything
it all.
I should have asked you or we forgot if you would like to add?
No, I think I don't want to throw too much at everyone that's overwhelming. I would just say, um, the world is evolving, our space is evolving, the laws are always evolving. If anyone needs some clarity or just wants to speak, like, through Susan, we offer a free consultation, um, to everyone and anyone through Susan, free consultation. We could speak one on one. We'd love to talk to you, see how we could be of service if we can, and just make sure overall, like, please practice proactive law, instead of reactive. I promise, like, you'll always be happy you had the insurance when you need it. You'll always be happy you had the proactive law when you need it, and we're here to make it fun and to make it easy and to take that entire load off your plate. So if you need us, please don't hesitate to reach out, to book some time. And we're always here for you and your community. Susan, you're awesome.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Chad, for sharing your wisdom. It was a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Susan, so much for having me.